A student named Tony liked to travel around the country in his spare time. He did this all without trains, cars, or bicycles. Instead, he preferred to rely on his feet and hiked. He packed all his belongings into one backpack, stocked up on a map of the new area he intended to visit, and set out to explore its attractions. Whether historic buildings, monuments, or just beautiful places, Tony enjoyed looking at one and all, and photographed them with curiosity. One day, while walking by the sea, the young man saw the ruins of an old lighthouse, standing upon a cliff. Against the setting sun, surrounded by sprawling shrubbery, the scene looked incredibly picturesque and romantic. But getting to where the lighthouse was proved dangerous. The slope leading there was very steep, and its path that had crumbled in several places and almost disappeared. Tony wasn't even sure it had ever been there. He hesitated for a while, but the mysterious ruins beckoned him so much that the traveler decided to go up and photograph by any means necessary. He began to climb the slope. The ascent proved more difficult than anticipated, as dusk was falling. But even though he fell a couple of times and crawled over the rocks on his stomach, he persevered on his way. At the end of the trail, the young man had banged his knuckles, scraped his knees, and torn the sleeve of his t-shirt. Finally, Tony reached the final few inches from the cliff's edge. All he needed was one last, final ounce of strength. Grabbing scraps of dry grass, he pulled himself up with difficulty and climbed up and over the edge of the cliff, stretching out on the ground. Breathing heavily and red with sweat, Tony got to his feet, looked around, and realized that all his effort was not in vain. The dilapidated lighthouse, surrounded by wild roses and honeysuckle bushes, looked fantastic against the sunset. And suddenly Tony saw a woman not far away, chasing a cow in front of her. The woman looked at the scratched and dirtied boy with surprise, but continued to drive the animal away from the lighthouse with a twig. Limping, Tony caught up with the stranger, said hello, and asked in amazement how she managed to get up the cliff with a cow. The woman shrugged her shoulders and replied that she didn't find it difficult. The cliff is quite gentle, and many locals take their cattle here in front of the lighthouse to graze. Tony walked a few steps to where the woman had directed him and suddenly saw a broad, level descent. On the other side of the cliff was a road that could be climbed without running out of breath. A stunned Tony examined his scratched hands and stained clothes. He remembered seeing a convenient path skirting the side of the cliff until he noticed the lighthouse. If Tony had not rushed to storm the nearly steep wall and had followed the trail, he would have found a comfortable 5-minute climb and been able to focus on taking pictures. Before throwing all your energy into a difficult task, study it from all sides and consider whether there is not a much simpler solution.